my name is Rowan Warehall, and today the topic of my mini presentation is on television. It's a topic I'm very passionate about because I thoroughly enjoy watching television. I think there's no better way to end a hard, stressful day than to sit down and watch a great episode of your favorite television show. In addition to that, I find the history of television extremely fascinating, both in how shows get made and how they may impact society. So today I'm hoping to talk to you about the golden age of television. I'm going to explain two reasons why the 1950s are considered the golden age of television, and then identify television programs that influenced society during that time. So the equipment for television has been around since 1927. However, due to the cost of production and lack of resources, they weren't produced on a large scale, and radio did remain the dominant form of entertainment medium about until the end of World War II, where you do see this boost of economic growth in the United States. So prior to 1945, there was less than 10,000 television sets in the United States. However, by 1950, 6 million television sets had been sold, and then by 1960, you see over 60 million sets in households across America. So you really do see this exponential growth in the amount of people owning televisions. And what's leading to our second reason for it being the golden age is because you have this increase in people watching television, there's this demand for different types of stories and different ways to tell and show this information using the visual aspect that the radio did not have. So that led broadcasters to develop two new types of television format, one being the magazine type, which had segments within the same program, as well as the television special, which would be short weekly stories that would be told. So I have a fun challenge. They asked historians to put together a list in no order of importance, but 10 most influential shows that were created during the golden age of television. I plan to go through them and talk about why they were so influential. I'll pause in case you want to guess what they are before I go through them. Okay. So first, starting off, we have Texaco Star Theater. This originally aired in 1948 and was hosted by Milton Berle, who was nicknamed Mr. Television. He brought a vaudeville show, essentially, which would be a mix of music, comedy, dancing, singing, outrageous, wacky outfits, something that you'd have to go see live into the living rooms of these average Americans. It was very popular. It was something that had never been possible before the invention of the television, and they attribute him as being one of the reasons for this drastic increase of television sales during the 1950s. Next up on the list, we have Howdy Doody. This is interesting in the sense that it's really important to the pioneering of children geared television. Prior to that, you see executives not really trusting how successful a show geared specifically towards children would be, but Howdy Doody, which aired in 1947, became wildly successful and had very high ratings, more than they were expecting, which then led executives to realizing that shows for children could still be something successful. Next up, we have I Love Lucy. I Love Lucy is considered, even by today's standards, to be one of the most successful shows of all time. It was a pioneer on many fronts, first being that it was not broadcast live in New York, but instead filmed in Hollywood. It was one of the first shows shot before a live studio audience and utilized multiple cameras, so you got different angles. In addition to that, it was shot on different film compared to other shows, so it was shot on a 35mm, which is of better quality, which actually allowed them to show reruns. So I Love Lucy is the first show to have reruns on television, and for 4 of its 6 seasons, it was the most watched show on television. Next up, we have Lassie. So again, this is another show that was wildly successful and geared specifically towards children. However, this show had more of a story component where they're building on story every week, as well as having real leads, live actors instead of like puppets or people in costumes, and it also had a live animal on set. Next, we have Leave It to Beaver. So Leave It to Beaver was important, and it aired in 1957 because it was told through the perspective of a child, so it was a child-driven narrative. In addition to that, it was one of the first shows that really showed a modern, kind of at the time, a modern middle America family and the problems that they would go through and common issues that would come up in a family setting. It wasn't trying to be outrageous and wacky. It tried to show the everyday life. And because of that, it was one of the first successful uses of in-show advertising, where people would see these products that these characters were using and would want to run to the store and buy them. So it opened the door to further advertisement in television shows. Next up, we have Lone Ranger. Lone Ranger is important, and it aired in 1949 because originally it started off as a radio broadcast that then made the translation successfully over to television. So this is the start of a lot of your radio programs starting to try to utilize that image format and that picture storytelling ability to continue to be successful. Next up, we have Twilight Zone, one of my personal favorites. It was in 1959 that this aired, and it was created by Rod Serling. It was the first successful sci-fi television series, and again, geared towards adults. It took itself very seriously and told these very serious science fiction stories through this picture format. And it's still considered to be, it was very critically successful, but a lot of television shows still pull inspiration from this show today. The next two kind of go together, so the first being The Tonight Show, which is the world's longest running talk show. It originally aired in 1954, and again, kind of followed that magazine format. So the next one that it kind of goes along with is The Today Show, which is technically the first program that did follow that magazine format, where it kind of combined the news as well as lifestyle pieces together in the same 20-minute broadcast time. So again, this is something that you, before television, would have to read out of an actual magazine. Instead, they're giving it to you in a different format. And last but not least, we have Game of the Week, which originally aired in 1953. So interestingly enough, this didn't pick up right away in terms of popularity. People still primarily used radio because of the picture quality not being very good on the television. But as technology improved and picture quality improved, this boomed in the 60s. And obviously today, sports is one of the most televised programs on television currently. So it's kind of interesting that it didn't always start out that way. Initially, it showed baseball games, and then it followed by football. And from there, more sports were being televised. Here are the resources that I used, and I just want to thank you for listening to this mini presentation. I hope you learned something and you enjoyed. Thank you so much.